As we spoke about earlier, Michelle Obama gave a fine speech during the DNC. But even though she was calm throughout, and even though she said literally nothing that can really be considered controversial, the incredibly sensitive, thin-skinned conservatives over at Fox were offended by what she had to say. So let's start off with Tucker Carlson, who is a Swanson heir, who earned his wealth initially that way, and literally sits in an air-conditioned room spouting off his disgusting fascist ideology and gets millions of dollars to do it. So what does he have to say about Michelle Obama? Well, let's take a listen.
Last night, she delivered a taped address from her $11 million estate on Martha's Vineyard. Michelle Obama, it's fair to say, has done pretty well for herself. But what she wanted you to know last night was that she is still a victim, she and everyone who looks like her. So shut up and accept her dominion over you.
None of that happened. Like 0% of that happened. She didn't present herself as a victim. She talked about injustice in the country, which is demonstrably true. Various statistics bear that out, whether it has to do with the incarceration rate of Black people in this country, the number of Black men who are unarmed and get shot and killed as they're like running away from cops in this country. I mean, there's just multiple measures to look at to show that this country is dealing with a gross level of injustice. And Tucker Carlson pushes for it on his show on a nightly basis. He knows it exists. He's part of the problem. He's part of the reason why it continues to exist in this country. But for him to get so offended at Michelle Obama's speech, I think it's very illuminating for me, because I guess my biggest issue, if you can call it that, with her speech was that I felt that it was too toned down. And I think I had this, honestly, I had a blind spot here, because even as a woman who gets told that I need to stop being so aggressive, I also forgot that it's a double whammy for her, because not only is she a woman, she's a Black woman. And even if she speaks calmly, she gets stereotyped like crazy. And so my critique of her speech was a very mild critique, by the way, really didn't take into account the fact that had she spoken as aggressively as I like, the feedback would have been far worse, especially since the feedback right now is so negative from these disgusting right wingers, even when she gave such a calm, logical, rational speech.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine a world in which she came out guns blazing, but I also don't know how different the response could be. They're losing their minds in the same way that the nominee is Joe Biden and he's a radical far left activist. Okay, well then what would you have said if it was Bernie? He's Thanos, but socialist. I don't know. Like at a certain point, you've capped out on your I'm offended meter, and they do that all the time. Yeah, and so that's why she has to, I'm sure, whenever she speaks, be conscious of the fact that she's gonna be stereotyped pretty much no matter what. The same way that Kamala Harris is being referred to as an angry Black woman. I've literally never seen her angry in my entire life. Even when she's doing her prosecutorial, like in a hearing sort of vibe.
Cross-examinations, yeah.
It's not emotional, you little baby.
No, but that's
How can you look at that?
That's the thing. Like it's funny because when I see her participate in those hearings and ask the questions the way she does, I mean, that's where I'm always endlessly impressed with her, right? I love that. But again, I forget, and I shouldn't forget, because I get a lot of this as a woman, and I know that it's far worse if you're a Black woman. You're expected to behave a certain way, right? So of course, that kind of strong presentation really resonates with me. I absolutely love it, but I didn't really take into account the balance that someone like Michelle Obama has to strike when she gives speeches, because inevitably she's gonna get these types of comments. But at the same time, I mean, if they're gonna come at her when she's absolutely calm, absolutely rational, then why not have a stronger message? You know what I'm saying? Like, Tucker Carlson is gonna lie about her no matter what. Brit Hume, who we'll get to in just a minute, is gonna lie about her and the delivery of her speech no matter what. Just like with AOC gave a powerful speech and she was calm throughout her speech, right? But the message there really resonated with me because it was a super strong message that meant that talked about how we really do need fundamental systemic change in this country and how we need to reimagine systems, including how we go about with foreign policy. But anyway, and it gets worse. It gets worse, John. If you think Tucker Carlson's done, you haven't really heard anything yet. Take a listen.
What you just heard was a total and complete crock. A never-ending list of innocent people of color continue to be murdered? That's what Michelle Obama told us. Well, no. So far this year, there have been a total of 8 unarmed black men killed by police in this country. Not a never-ending list, 8.
Yeah, except that's not true. So let's take a look at the actual statistics. The rate of fatal police shootings among black Americans this year was actually much higher than that of any other ethnicity, standing at 31 fatal shootings per million of the population as of July 2020. And the number is not a total of 8 black people who were killed this year. So far, unfortunately and tragically, 111 black people have died as a result of police shootings. And that's the number as of July 29th. So we're in August now. I'm sure that number is actually higher. But that's what the actual statistics represent.
Yeah, and I love that, like, it's up to Tucker Carlson of whether the list is impressive enough to merit a politician being concerned about it. How many interviews has he given to Texas gym owners who are mad about quarantines? They haven't died, certainly not even 8, let alone over 100. But he's given them his time, and he's a passionate advocate for them. It's just such BS. And but like he has to say that. Like, you don't go to Tucker Carlson because you want to hear like a compassionate take on the plight of black Americans. That's not what you're going there for. We know who he is. We know what the show is designed to do. That was a great example of it.
Yeah, and so look, one other thing. I mean, this guy, is he really, like, he's throwing stones when he's in this glass house of unearned wealth, right? Like, he's acting as if he's like some working class union leader. No, homeboy, you inherited a ton of wealth and you're literally getting paid millions of dollars to spew your hatred at Fox News. Michelle Obama, on the other hand, is completely self-made, worked her way up, okay? Like, that is an American success story, whereas Tucker Carlson is honestly an example of old money, someone who was able to inherit and get this giant head start over everyone else. And the fact that he uses this like populist message and then immediately switches to the racism and hatred should like really clearly message to everyone, including people, on the left who I think sometimes can be a little gullible, what his real agenda is here. His agenda isn't like, oh, I feel really bad about working Americans. We need to fight for justice. No. He uses that type of language, much like Trump did, in order to immediately pivot toward, we need to end immigration. We need to hate these groups of people, that group of people. That's who Tucker Carlson is. So don't be fooled by his rhetoric. He couldn't care less about people suffering, couldn't care less about people living on the streets. If I remember correctly, he was one of these clowns who was demonizing homeless people not too long ago. So I'm just not buying any of Tucker Carlson's ridiculous populism.
He has to do that. I mean, like Bernie Sanders is a populist, so he wants people to get paid more. Tucker Carlson is a populist so that he can get more people to be white supremacists. That's really all it is. And he is trying desperately to craft this image that he's some sort of populist. So what he does in this story, and in fact, if we get to the second story about him, anytime he disagrees with someone who happens to be rich, even if it has nothing to do with the disagreement, he calls them rich, so that it sounds like he's a populist or that he's not an elitist. Because look, he's sort of technically attacking a rich person. But like, okay, Michelle Obama's rich. Is that the problem that you had with her speech? Or like you don't like George Soros. What does that have to do with income inequality? Or in the Cardi B story that we're gonna talk about, he talks about how these record labels are rich. That doesn't have anything to do with the lyrics of her song. It's this weird wrapping paper of concern about out of control elites that's supposed to trick you into believing that he actually has populist policies that he wants to put into effect. He doesn't. He supports Republican economic philosophy 100% of the time. But he is desperately trying to build this brand, and that is why you're gonna see more like totally substance-free attacks against one rich individual or another on his show from now on.
And by the way, I mean, we all remember what a big deal Republicans made about Benghazi. And if Tucker Carlson's numbers were true and only 8 Black men died because of police shootings this year, that's 2 Benghazis. And Republicans never shut their mouths about Benghazi. So like, it's just, it is kind of incredible how numbers only matter, when it comes to their own political agenda. But look, I'm actually gonna skip ahead now because I've had enough of Tucker Carlson. I wanna talk about Brit Hume because Brit Hume relied on an incredibly old school racist trope to share his expert commentary on Michelle Obama.
This speech tonight by Jill Biden was tremendously effective in the sense that it didn't have the hard, angry edge that we heard last night to a considerable extent from Michelle Obama. And she highlighted things about Joe Biden's character and temperament that were touched on by others, but which are real.
So now I want to go to Michelle Obama's speech. This is just a snippet. This was honestly the spiciest moment of her speech, and you judge for yourselves if she comes across as angry in any way.
Let me be as honest and clear as I possibly can. Donald Trump is the wrong president for our country. He has had more than enough time to prove that he can do the job, but he is clearly in over his head. He cannot meet this moment. He simply cannot be who we need him to be for us. It is what it is. Now I understand that my message won't be heard by some people. We live in a nation that is deeply divided, and I am a Black woman speaking at the Democratic convention. But enough of you know me by now. You know that I tell you exactly what I'm feeling. You know I hate politics, but you also know that I care about this nation. You know how much I care about all of our children. So if you take one thing from my words tonight, it is this. If you think things cannot possibly get worse, trust me, they can and they will if we don't make a change in this election.
That's every political speech I've ever heard in my life.
Has Brit Hume ever listened to a single segment with Jeanine Pirro? Just one. Just one.
She said Trump is the wrong president for our country. That's it. That's nicer than anything Fox News is gonna say about Joe Biden tonight. Like by far. But it doesn't matter. It's they like Brit Hume and all of them, because Tucker Carlson is as much an old-fashioned prude as him. You'll see that in a story or two. They want women to be docile and not rile people up, and just be polite and all of that. Be ladylike. They seriously do. That's all it is. Like it doesn't matter who they are or how old they are. They fundamentally do. They want, if you're not white, you need to be quiet. If you're a woman, you need to be quiet. Just honestly, just be quiet and just leave us alone. And we'll pretend that we will listen to your concerns if you'll do that, but of course we won't. What we want you to do is we want you to be so easily ignored that we can just do it and not even have to notice that we're doing it. It's the approach to Michelle Obama when she's speaking. It's the approach to the civil rights protests when they're going on. They just want things to be nice and quiet and for people to not fight back when they're being crushed. That's all it is.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.